It's a simple question. The Sultan of SWAT, the Behemoth of Bust, the Caliph of Clout, the great Bambino, the Sultan of SWAT, Babe, or the Unicorn, Showtime, Ohtani. Who you taking? Who's the greatest of all time? I'm about to lay some very interesting facts I found out on you, and you can make your own decision, but mine is made. This is a Hold My Ball podcast. Let's get to talking about the Babe and Showtime.
This is a baseball podcast. Yeah, baseball. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about baseball stuff. Let's talk about the players and the teams. This is Hold My Ball. Yeah, baseball.
People love to debate. They can't just let one guy be one guy and then another guy be another guy. There's got to be comparison. And comparison in sports is a fun thing. And I'm actually glad I did this because this has been done a million times. But I learned a lot about Babe Ruth in doing this that I just didn't know. And I bet a lot of you didn't either. This will be quick, but by the end of it, I'll give you my answer. And I think you'll probably have yours. What I do want you to do, you got to comment. Comment twice on this thing. You can reply to your own comment. Comment right now who you think is the GOAT, the greatest of all time between Ruth and Ohtani. Right now, as it stands, Ruth's full career, Ohtani's continuing career. And then when this thing is over, when this video is over, reply to your own comment and say Ruth or Ohtani again. I want to know if it changes through watching this video. So I want to know what your take is before getting any of this information and what your take is after, because mine, I don't know if it changed, but there's some interesting stuff in here. Obviously, you always go with stats. I think that's the biggest thing people do when you compare. It's the facts. The stats are the facts. This is what this guy did. Ruth played 22 years from 1914 to 1935. And I know what you're already saying, comparing the times, yada, yada. Ohtani is in his 9th year. So Ruth played 22. Ohtani is in year 9 right now. Babe Ruth had 1 MVP in 22 years, 2 All-Stars, 1 batting title, 1 ERA title. Now, the obvious thing here is looking and going 1 MVP in 22 years. What you may or may not know, I actually didn't know this, Ruth's low MVP count is largely due to the restrictive rules of the league awards, the precursor to the modern BBWAA MVP. These were in place between 1922 and 1929. Under these rules, a player was only allowed to win the awards once in his career, which made him ineligible for the rest of the 1920s after his 1923 win. The modern unrestricted MVP voting format was not introduced until 1931, by which time Ruth was 36 years old. Now, that's obvious. I didn't know that. So until 1931, you could only win 1 MVP in your entire career, which is actually stupid. I think it's really stupid. And when you look at that, Ruth was here from 1914 to 1935. So the bulk of his youth and his best days were clearly from 1914 to probably let's call it 28. We'll give him that. 14 years of his 22-year career. I read a long article that broke down every single year of his season, and I'm not going to bore you with that, but I will say the guy estimated that he would have had 6 to 8 MVPs over his career. And the breakdown this guy gave, I agree with. And you can look it up, or you can just trust me on the fact that this breakdown was good. He talked about the winners. He talked about Ruth compared to the winners, whether he thinks he might have won that year. He certainly would have won, whatever the case. But 6 to 8 MVPs over his 22-year career, to me, is a legitimate number. It's a pretty legitimate number. And as far as the All-Star games, he had 2 in his career. The All-Star games started in 1993. Ruth was picked to the All-Star team in 33 and 34. His last season, which is 35, he was old and his playing time was diminished. So 2 of the 3 eligible years, he made it. You have to believe in 22 years, Ruth would have probably been a 20-time All-Star, I would guess. I mean, I feel like he would have been a 20-time All-Star. He started pitching early on, and he pitched very well. He would have gone as a pitcher. Later in his career, he became non-pitcher, just hitting. And obviously, he hit the ball. He hit the ball really, really well. Now, most probably know, this is interesting, he is the all-time leader in WAR. He has like 183 WAR or something, which is truly absurd. 9 seasons over a 10 WAR. 9 seasons. And I don't care about WAR. I actually despise WAR. I understand it, but I think it's just a stupid metric, whatever you want to even call it. Just looking at his year-by-year stats is totally absurd. He had 6 seasons over 370 batting average. Back when batting average mattered, 370 for 6 seasons. And he had at least 40 home runs in every one of those seasons. So for at least 6 seasons in his career, he hit 370 with 40 jacks, which is insane. He also had greater than a 500 OBP 5 times in his career. But this is the interesting part to me, and I don't know how much this affects things. I will say this. He is the all-time leader in home runs. He was. My bad. You got Bonds in there, obviously. 714, and you have Mays. I don't know who else is up there. Every time I freaking think about Bonds breaking the record, I just blank on who Bonds freaking beat. Hank Aaron. There you go. That name, Hank Aaron's name, just like escapes me every time. I don't know why. Does it to anyone else? Anybody else? It does to me. But anyways, Barry Bonds surpasses Hank Aaron, which is pretty awesome. Babe Ruth, 714. He is 3rd on the list. Here's what's crazy. This was very interesting to me. At the time, so I'm going to give you some dates. They had a thing called a bounce home run, which is today's ground rule double. Umpires called any ball that went over the fence in fair territory but then landed in foul territory a foul ball. So number one, Ruth played at a time up until what year was this? I think prior to 1920. So at the time, a ground rule double was considered a home run. You hit a ball and it bounces over the fence, that's a home run, which I don't know how many of those Ruth hit. There's no real stats on it, but I got to imagine it might have been quite a few. There's not a ton in today's game, so you don't see it as much. I don't know what their fields were like, though. If they had warning tracks, I got to imagine they were like hard as rocks. And even some of the grass fields were probably hard as rocks back then. So there may have been a lot of ground rule doubles. There might have been a lot. And I'd be interested to know that number, but I don't think there's any way to find out. This also is very, very interesting, and this goes the other way, but this changed in, I don't know what year this changed. Home runs that hook around the foul pole like they do now, if it goes obviously around the foul pole in fair territory, it can hook around it and land in what would be foul territory on the other side of the foul pole, is a home run. Back then it wasn't, which is actually crazy. Any ball that went over the fence in fair territory but then landed in foul territory was considered a foul ball. You couldn't hook a ball around the foul pole for a home run as you can today. There was a rope attached to the foul pole stretching back to a second foul pole at the rear wall of the bleachers. The ball had to land in fair territory no matter how far you hit it, which is crazy. Ruth's 60th home run in 1927 was said to have cleared the fence clearly fair but landed close enough to the line. Some argued it should have been called foul, which is just a crazy thing to do. So every ball you hit over the fence had to land still in fair territory no matter what. That's wild. Now, when Ruth played, the Yankee Stadium he was at, right field was 295 feet. That's pretty friggin' short. And Ruth saw there was 16 teams in the league for Ruth's whole career. And there was only white people in the league. There was no black people allowed to play at this time. So Ruth's competition, clearly nothing close to what it was today. I mean, nothing close. Now, for the times, obviously, they were the best that I guess the world had to offer within the racial rules they had, which is crazy. But it doesn't compare in any way to today's game. It just doesn't. It can't. It just can't. Here's one more thing. Prior to 1920, I don't know how many times this happened to Babe Ruth, you weren't credited with a home run if the winning run crossed the plate ahead of you. So there was no, if you're down by 1 and there's 2 runners on and you hit a home run, once that second guy crosses, you're credited with probably a double or a triple wherever you are. I guess a double, wherever he is when he crosses home plate. So if you stepped on second and the guy on first stepped on home at the same time, you get a walk-off double, I guess. So I don't know how many home runs Ruth either was credited for with the ground rule doubles, missed because of the foul ball rule, or missed because of the walk-off. That guy scored, the game's already over. It doesn't matter if you touch home. That's not a home run. Very interesting. But when you look at Ruth and you look at his 16-team league for his whole career, the competition, seeing the same arms where one pitcher through the whole game, it is hard to look at and think, yeah, that is in any way equal to what Ohtani is seeing when he sees probably a minimum of two to 3 pitchers a night. Different arms. Every one of them pumping 95 or higher. Really, truly, like, not comparable. Ohtani's got 30 teams in the league. Now here's the Ohtani kind of thought. We'll go over pitching real quick. Their pitching careers, because Babe Ruth, this is why it's a comparison, because Babe Ruth and Ohtani, 2 of the best to ever do it, are pitching and hitting, and you haven't seen anyone do it like the 2 of them really ever. You just haven't. Let's go. Games. WAR. Let's do WAR first. 182.6 for Babe Ruth, 55.3 up to this point for Ohtani. 2,503 games for Ruth, 1,067 for Ohtani. So Ruth at this point has played about 2.5 times more games than Ohtani. He started 147 of them as a pitcher. Ohtani has started 108. 1,221 innings for Babe Ruth. Ohtani is 577. So, again, he has half. He has almost exactly half the innings, which is pretty crazy. ERA, 2.28 for Babe Ruth, 2.8 for Ohtani. Here's the thing I look at and think this is pretty amazing. But, again, different times. Babe Ruth, in his 1,221 innings, struck out 488 guys. Ohtani, in his 577, half the innings as Babe Ruth, has struck out 724. So he's struck out about 250 more guys in 700 less innings. That's wild. Babe Ruth's K percentage was 10. Ohtani's is 31. Ohtani has 195 walks to Ruth's 441. So Ruth walked, what is that, a guy every 3 innings? Ohtani at 195 is close to the same. 195 walks, almost 600 innings. That's about 1 in every 3 innings. Now, Hall of Fame, yes, championships, 7 for Ruth. Again, 16 teams, different time. Ohtani's got 2. He's got 5 All-Stars, 4 MVPs. It seems like Ohtani has more All-Stars than that. I don't know if that's truly correct, but when it comes to pitching, Ohtani clears this by miles. By miles. That's not even actually close. So check for Ohtani in the pitching department. He's doing it in a much harder time. But when you look at the strikeouts back when Ruth played were like embarrassing. They were like an embarrassing thing. He once, I think Lou Gehrig, is it Gehrig? I don't know. one of those guys, Mantle, one of those dudes struck out a few times in a game and was booed. Just boo, boo, boo. Because it was like embarrassing back then. And he flipped his whole thing like, I will never, ever strike out again. That's basically how he went. And then he won the Triple Crown, and they never booed him again. So tough crowd even back then for the Yanks. Ruth also started striking out a little more because he, at a point in his career, went 4 for 4 with 4 singles and was getting booed on his 4th single because the people didn't come to watch that. They didn't come to watch Babe Ruth hit singles. So he said, all right, screw it. Time to hit jacks. And obviously when you're trying to hit home runs, that's going to come with more swing and miss, more strikeouts. So it is interesting offensively for Babe Ruth. And now today, in today's game, strikeouts are fine if you're hammering home runs. A la one of my favorite players, old Kyle Schwarber. So the pitching check mark for Ohtani, I give it to him. I don't even think it's close. Now, when you look at the offense here, Ohtani, 1,067 games, 4,563 at-bats. Babe Ruth, 2,500 games, 8,399 at-bats. So, again, 2.5 times the games. At-bats, about double. We'll call it double. Babe Ruth played in a Yankee Stadium for a large portion of his career, and it was 290 feet to right field. And you were allowed to bounce it over that fence for a home run. It's interesting thing I wasn't aware of that changes the game a little bit. Ohtani, 288 home runs so far. Ruth, 714. Ohtani's got 695 in the RBI department. Ruth had 2,214 RBIs. A career 342 average. Ohtani, 281, which if you translate those two from that game to today's game, I think a lot of these are pretty equal. 690 slug. Ohtani's at a 578 slug. 2,174 runs and 741 runs for Ohtani. The way I see a lot of this, 123 stolen bases for Babe Ruth, 171 in 2.5 times less at bats for Ohtani. So he's got him by 50 stolen bases. That wasn't Ruth's thing, obviously. 22 years, you have 123 stolen bases. Offensively, Babe Ruth's numbers are insane. If you just take out the time that he did it, how he did it, the fact that he saw, the same pitcher all game and probably the same pitcher more than, I saw a stat somewhere. The year that Babe Ruth hit his 60 home runs, I think he saw something like 76 pitchers, 76 different pitchers that year. And when Ohtani hit his 60, it was something like, I want to say 270 something, close to almost like 300 different pitchers, which would make sense. I feel like it's honestly could be more than that, really, but it makes sense. If he saw 2 a game, 162 times 2 is, what is that? 320, 324. So let's just put it at 300. You're seeing 300 different arms compared to Babe Ruth, who saw 70, the same guys over and over all season. And God knows they weren't anything near today's pitchers. They weren't even close. They couldn't have been. They just couldn't have been. So when you look at the offensive numbers, overall, Babe Ruth, unbelievable. He has him in every category when it comes to actual, just overall whatever. I'll add his OPP and slug, his OPS right here. 690 and 474. What's that come out to? 1134? 1164. A 1.164. That's his career. That's his career OPS. A 1.164, which is pretty wild. Up to this point, Ohtani is, where is he at? 800 plus 760. 76 and 78, so what's that, 940? That's 952. Ohtani's at a 952 OPS for his career. Both guys, obviously, doing very amazing things. But pitching, hands down to Ohtani. And here's the thing with Ohtani, like he literally can do whatever he decides he wants to do. He wanted to go 50-50, got it. Did it, no problem. 50 homers, 50 steals, got it. First guy ever, I'm going to invent that club. Did it. He wants a Cy Young. That's what he said he wants. He wants a Cy Young. And this is the first year he's really like, I'm going to try to win the Cy Young. He's made it clear. And he's currently pitching to the tune of a 0.73 ERA over 8 starts, 49 innings, 28 hits, 4 earned runs, 54 Ks, and a 1.043 whip, which is really my favorite pitching stat. I think it's the best stat there is. If you don't know what whip is, it's walks and hits per innings pitched. So that's basically how many base runners get on base just because of the pitcher. It doesn't count errors, doesn't count anything else. Only the pitcher. That's what he can control. So 1 an inning at most. And even that feels like that stat might not even be correct. Let's find out real quick for Ohtani this season. Ohtani stats. This year, where's he at pitching-wise? He is, I mean, I'm sure it's probably correct, but let's see. No, there you go. 2026 whip, 0.837. I knew that couldn't be right. 0.837 whip. So this dude is letting on less than one guy per inning when he pitches to his own accord. And he's doing what needs to be done to win a Cy Young. He's not the favorite. He's not the favorite. Christopher Sanchez is absolutely dealing. And there's another guy or two up there too, but he's gone 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 5. That's how many innings he's gone in his 8 starts. 5 straight starts of 6 innings, and then 2 starts of 7 innings, and then a 5-inning outing. This guy is literally whatever he decides he wants to do, he's going to do, or at least put himself in the runnings for something. It's very interesting to me that Ohtani he's a freak. That's the thing. He's an absolute freak of nature. There's not anybody else that has done it like him in the modern era. So after reading, researching, looking at all this stuff I just told you, here's my bottom line. And I think this is how we should do it for Jordan and LeBron. I think this is how we should do it for everybody. But in this specific case, I truly believe like these two guys are unique because I don't think anybody has come in between the two of them. And maybe there has, maybe you guys could tell me, that pitched and hit like this. So I think you're really 100 years apart. I don't think in between those 100 years, there's somebody else that belongs in this debate the same way. And so the bottom line for me is there's a new category. I'm going to call it the GOTS. Instead of the GOATs, I'm going to call it the GOTS. GOTTS. Greatest of their time. GOTT, the GOT. He's the greatest of his time. How come we can't have that? Why does there have to be a greatest of all time? You can't even come close to comparing a dude that played in a 16-team league that wasn't allowed any other race playing. And I truthfully, actually, I don't know if they let Asians or anyone else. So I don't want to say any other race and discount the racism that was happening back then. And maybe I should have done my research more, but I'll say both. No other race. Maybe that's one scenario. I don't know if a Japanese guy could have played back then. I have no idea. Doubt it. But specifically, black people were not allowed to play. It's not even comparable. And all the other things we talked about. So you cannot compare 1920 to 2020. It's in every aspect, it is a completely different game all the way around. Any pitcher today, the Houston Astros just threw a combined 3-guy no-hitter against Texas. I would argue if an old team like that, if you just plugged in a 1920s team, take the Babe Ruth Yankees or whatever he was on, put him in today's game without any difference. You have a 1920s team. You don't have the resources of today. You don't have any of that. You got your 50-ounce bats. You got all that stuff. I would argue they would get no hit 100 times in a 162-game season. Would they eventually figure it out? Yeah. But I would argue there would be an insane streak of what is this? When you're seeing Mason Miller come in, not a guy would be able to take the bat off their shoulder. Maybe that's crazy. Maybe 100's crazy. They were professionals back then. They might figure it out sooner than that, but I think there would be an insane amount of no-hitters. Insane. So Babe Ruth faced a significantly easier MLB than Ohtani. And I will say this. I'll finish with this. I think Babe Ruth is today. I think today's Babe Ruth is Kyle Schwarber. That's what I think. I think if you put Babe Ruth in today's game and gave him the resources growing up that Ohtani has and all these guys have, I think he is a Kyle Schwarber, if he's even that good, to be honest. But Ruth, for his time, clearly the greatest of his time. Now, if I had to choose between the two, am I taking Ohtani, what we know of Ohtani today, and Babe Ruth, who also got all the same resources, say he was born the same year as Ohtani? What's Ohtani, 30, 31? So he was born in what, mid to late 90s? Mid to late 90s or something? If Babe Ruth was born mid to late 90s, loved baseball, grew up, all the training tools, all that stuff, and made it to the big leagues, I think he's Kyle Schwarber. I think he's a lefty that hits bombs and strikes out a lot, and oh well. And he's a DH. That's what I think. And if I had to pick one of the two, same resources, if Ruth was born in the late 90s and made it to the big leagues, this is Ohtani hands down, not even honestly a question in my mind. It's not even close. So let me know. This is now my talk is over. What do you think? If you commented in the beginning, please reply to your comment and tell me if it changed or whatever. You don't even have to give a reason, but you can. Give me reasons what you think. I love a good, you guys fill me in on a lot of stuff that I might not even know too, because my research goes just far enough to feel like I'm good enough to do a podcast, and then I just rip it. If you can't tell, very little prep here. But I do make sure that everything I'm saying has been researched to the best of my ability as true and not just throwing stuff out at you guys. But what I don't do is script this thing out in a big line and go, I'm going to say this now, boom, 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 boom. I just write a bunch of notes down on this thing and just kind of flow off it. So let me know what you think. Was your first thing Ohtani, it switched to Ruth? Was it Ruth switched to Ohtani, or was it Ruth stayed Ruth? Was it Ohtani stayed Ohtani? Or do you guys agree? Get rid of the GOAT debate and let's go with the GOT debate. GOTT, greatest of their time. Simple. Very simple. Thank you guys for being here. This is the Hold My Ball podcast. I love doing this. I love that you're listening. As always, like, subscribe, share, do all the things that don't cost you any money. That's what our sponsors are for. And when you guys like, share, and do all this other stuff, that's when the sponsors come in, because you guys build this podcast up for free. And then I get sponsors and I continue to do this and up the production because the people that are not you guys are paying for those extra things. And I love that so much from you guys. I appreciate you. It's been a while since I've given anything away. Next episode, I'm starting with the Slab Dynasty rip. Those are one of our sponsors, my favorite. Check them out, slabdynasty.com. You guys, this is where I rip all my cards. I don't have my stuff to rip one live right now, but I will start with it next episode. Today, I'm going to give a ball away. Brand new baseball. I'm going to actually sign it for whoever. Anybody that had written Ruth, anybody that gave me who they think is the greatest of all time or whatever. If you've written Ruth or Ohtani in this comment section, I'm going to randomly pick one. I'm going to hit you up. I'm going to get your address. I'm going to sign a ball for you. I'll sign it whatever you want. I'll sign it as Babe Ruth. How about that? Is that illegal? I don't know. I could also sign it as Ohtani. Or I could sign it as myself, Jake Savicki, which is worth significantly less than an actual signed Ohtani or an actual signed Babe Ruth ball, but still cool because I'm cool, depending on who you ask. Anyways, the rambling session's over. Thank you guys. Love you. This is Hold My Ball podcast. Catch you on the next episode.